Awesome. Hello, everyone, to another webinar with Coffee with Gable. Today, we're going to talk about workplace intelligence, turning space data into culture and performance. It's a really interesting conversation because, to me, it combines two of my favorite topics, which is data and, how to make employees both perform the best, but also be the happiest in the workplace, wherever it is. Whoever of you who is joining us today, please let's get to know each other. Write your name, your role, your company, and obviously where you're dialing in from. A little bit about Gable. I'm Lisa, I'm the CEO and co-founder. Gable is the workplace operating system. We are a fully integrated solution for seamless hybrid, remote, and in-office management. We have 4 key pillars of our platform. One is access for your remote employees to over 20,000 co-working spaces, bookable on demand. Also the ability to orchestrate events, whether those are on-sites or off-sites. For companies that do have an office presence, we cover everything that's related to desk reservation, meeting room booking, and all the data to optimize your office. And finally, visitor management and package delivery to handle everything that's related to the front of the house and welcome visitors to your spaces. And with that, would like you to meet our incredible speakers that will introduce themselves. Didi, I'll start with you, and then we'll go to Michael and Svet.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. And my name is Didi Lim. I lead the workplace at Gilead Sciences. And so I lead the team through global design, planning on our projects, as well as occupancy planning and workplace technology and move management.
Amazing. Thank you. Michael?
Hi, I'm Michael Kotnik. I'm head of office and industrial real estate at Wayfair. We have about a 33 million square foot portfolio that we manage across office and industrial asset classes, global portfolio. So a lot of what I do is transaction based, but when it comes to headquarters and things like that, it's a little bit more design. But yeah, happy to be here and excited about the conversation.
Okay. Svet? Oh, wait, you're on mute.
Hi, I'm Svetlana, and I lead the portfolio analytics and technology team here at DoorDash. My team focuses on using data and technology to help us understand how our workplaces are performing and what can we do to make them better. That includes everything from portfolio strategy to exploring AI tools to make our real estate decisions faster and more informed. I'm really excited to be here and share how we are shaping the future of work for DoorDash.
Thank you. Also, we do have a Q&A session at the end, so please join. There are already quite a few questions. You can upvote the question you want to make sure that we will answer, or you can submit your own. And also, if anyone is interested in learning more about Gable, you can book a demo here, and our team is going to post the link to book the demo. We're very excited to hopefully show you what we do. So without further ado, I'll start with a few questions, I would say. First is, let's talk a little bit about different strategies and policies that you have in the companies. I'm very excited to hear each and every one of you to talk about your workplace strategy and policy, I would say. Didi, I'll start with you, and then we'll go Michael and Svetlana.
Sure. So at Gilead, our campus is at Foster City, and we have a 3 days return to site. But it's interesting. We are a life sciences company, so our scientists has been in the labs on site. Even during COVID, they were really trying to find the treatment for diseases throughout COVID as well. So with that, as all other kind of G&A functions and supporting groups, we are coming to site a lot. So we're here 3, 4, 5 days a week. So with that said, our workplace strategy hasn't changed from return to site, but what it has done is really looking at how we can evolve to fit all our users' needs better and to enhance our employee experience.
Amazing. Thank you. Michael?
So we are 4 days mandatory. So we're Monday to Thursday in the office with a flex day Friday. We've been doing this since about 2021. So like Didi, right? It didn't change too much during COVID. And I guess I should differentiate, right? That's the work, the actual office side of it. Obviously during COVID, the industrial side and deliveries that was ongoing. But yeah, so we are 4 days a week in. We have 1-for-1 desking. We've assigned desking still. Our leaders are really focused on collaboration and in-person communication too. So that was one of the main drivers for getting us back into the office so early in COVID. And I think that still kind of informs our workplace strategy, right? So we know how much space we need. We know that we want spaces that produce collaboration, things like that. So again, to like Didi said, ours hasn't changed too much over the years, but yeah, we're back in 4 days a week, and we see some great retention.
Amazing. Svetlana?
I'd agree with Didi and Michael. Didi rolled out a flexible workplace model in 2022, and we haven't changed it since then as well. We believe in individual teams to determine whether roles can be on-site or hybrid or, just remote by themselves. Some teams required in-person presence due to the nature of the work, and then those teams are coming in regularly to office. The whole approach is rooted in flexibility and trust, and we believe in empowering teams to choose what works best for their teams, and leaders have that flexibility.
So it's quite different in that sense, right? Because every team to its own, which in some sense also makes it more challenging, right? Like to maintain, I would
Yes,
assume.
we
Yeah,
cater to all the audiences.
exactly, exactly. And I think it's really interesting that we have, different policies, but also what's really cool, at least from my perspective, is that you have decided quite early on what is the strategy that works for you, and then you continued. So it's more, to this point at the beginning, there is more iteration focus on the user experience and the employee experience, versus mandate or this mandate. This is more about what you do when you are in the office, which leads me to my second question. This is more to you, I would say, but please, anyone that wants to chime in, go ahead. Is how do you balance data-driven decisions with human-centered design, and in general, the employee experience aspect that you talked about?
I think they really complement each other very well, right? Instead of thinking about the balance, is like realizing that you need the data to help you drive the human-centric experience as well as the feedback loop. So, because we are not so much of remote first or hybrid first as a company, at Foster City, we own the real estate, so we actually have a site sitting for everyone. We're really using data to help us look at how people are using their spaces, and particularly the amenity spaces. So, for example, in the cafeteria, we're looking at like utilization, understanding how operations should be maintained, or do we need to increase the quantity and the frequency of food, how people are using the spaces. We were using data in the lobby area where we had conference rooms to realize that no one was using it. So we managed to actually increase the size of the lobby entrance and really put in branding and like our company mission to drive that sense of belonging when employees enter the building before they get to their workspaces. So I think really it's a complementary sort of set together rather than trying to balance them.
I love it. And I think, I actually really like the idea of having the company mission so, visible in that sense, because like it keeps reminding you why you're doing what you're doing. I think it's obviously very noble as well. Michael, as a follow-up to you, and you mentioned obviously you have a vast portfolio, but part of the challenges or opportunities for teams is building their cross-functional relationships, right? How did you get teams that weren't talking to each other collaborating in the space, right? Or in general, how does hiring strategy go in terms of co-located versus distributed, etc.?
Sure. You'd think that the around 33 million square feet would have been the biggest challenge joining, but I think when I did join, I found that a lot of our business partners and teams across that we interact with as a real estate team weren't really speaking the same language a lot of times, whether that was around space needs, forecasting, whatever it really was. So before I could really build any type of collaboration, right, I tried to identify where we could add structure, and then from there, like how cross functionality could actually add value and where it can add value, and then from there it became kind of building trust and building cadence and getting people comfortable, that there's quite these new questions are being asked, and I wasn't there, and our team isn't there to interject and step on toes, but rather to connect dots. And I think that once people started seeing that decisions were made better as key teams work together, I think that that collaboration started to become a lot more self-sustaining. And for me, what I did and what was integral, I think, was really creating a framework where people could contribute their expertise and feel part of a team without feeling that their ownership was being challenged, right? We're all one team. We're all trying to go towards the same goal. So I think that was huge, in getting us all together and moving in one direction and better forecasting space needs and design and whatever we need to do.
That's awesome. And obviously part of it is just setting up the expectations, to your point, and level setting on like who talks about what and what does it actually mean, right? You would think.
Exactly. And I think that, that can often come across as contentious, especially if it hasn't been in place before, right? Where you obviously go in with best of intention and a bias to good intent. And, it depends on how you approach it, and it can be read differently. So it really is about, creating that framework and that groundwork to make sure that you're moving together as a team. It makes all the difference.
That's excellent. Thank you. And Svetlana, question for you. We talk a lot about, data accuracy in general and what data should we collect, etc. And we need to make sure that the data is, I would say, clean in a sense to really make real data-driven decisions. So I'm wondering if you have any advice on, what workplace leaders should do in order to have a very advanced data infrastructure instead of just working through spreadsheets, which I'm sure a lot of us still do.
No, I agree, and it's a great question because for me, when I see data accuracy, it's a foundation of any well-run organization, any well-run workplace. When leaders rely on spreadsheets, they're basically as a single source of truth. They're often faced with version control issues, fat fingering. Somebody comes in, changes something, we don't know what's happening. Human errors or lack of real-time visibility into the data. So I think my advice for anybody who's looking to evolve is rethinking data as a shared organizational asset rather than a set of personal files. And I have like 4 steps that you follow and you achieve your transition. One is you define your single source of truth, whether, moving away from spreadsheets or smart sheets in that matter to cloud-based systems where you have a single source of data, a single source as a data warehouse, and then every work is working with the same accurate information. And then you invest in scalable tools. It's not about building all the dashboards together. It's just one dashboard at a time. You're doing smaller automated dashboards. At least you're reporting in real time, and then you keep on building on those, for decision making. And then the third thing I would say is create clear governance and accountability. Who comes in and inputs the data into the tools? Who has access? Who doesn't have access? Those kind of things. And then finally, just have foster a data-driven culture. When you let people know how important data is, they understand how it's helping in decision making. They understand the value of maintaining the accuracy and the need of having a centralized data solution rather than just working in their siloed spreadsheets.
I totally agree. I think at the end of the day, you need a single source of truth in order to understand, like you need to have a baseline. We hear this all the time. Obviously, it's very challenging when you have multiple systems, they do not speak to each other, and they obviously also do not format the same. So there is a lot of work to be done just to clean the data in that sense, and then to be able to build on top. So I totally agree. And I think that's even, Michael, to the point that you mentioned before, it is a bit of a fundamental, right? To have those baselines, and everyone needs to talk in the same language, right? As we talked before. So I think it's very much aligned to that. And actually, as a follow-up, and I think that's obviously a broader conversation that I'm sure every workplace leader here and in general is thinking about is AI, right? And how do we leverage AI to optimize your work or the customer experience, which the customer is obviously the employee, for workplace leaders. So I'm curious, Michael, from your perspective, how did you start working with AI? You mentioned that the team uses, ChatGPT or obviously there are many solutions out there for lease abstraction. We hear this commonly. Are there any other tasks that workplace leaders you think can delegate to AI? And on the other hand, what should still remain human?
Yeah, as a company, Wayfair, we have access to Gemini. So we're Google based, right? So we have Gemini built into our email to the G Suite. We use Slack as well, which now has an integration for AI. And we also have ChatGPT, depending on what team. So my team primarily uses ChatGPT for lease abstraction and things like that to take care of the more tedious, repeatable work, so that we can focus on some of the higher value decisions that need to be made. But I do think your point on the human element. I do think that there's a danger, in my opinion, of relying too heavily on data or AI for workplace design or for everything that it's really becoming. Such a focus on. And I think that, data can tell you, or AI can tell you, or data, whatever it is, can tell you, right, like how a desk is being used or what my rent is. But I think that it can't tell you how people feel, right, once they get into a space. And I think that human experience and that human element of belonging, like creativity, culture, all those things that make us who we are, I think that can't necessarily be captured in a data set, right? So and I think people are more than just data points. So I think our spaces need to reflect that, and our jobs need to reflect that. And I think for me, the way that I look at it is that AI should more support the work that needs to be done, and not replace those human elements and that human intuition that makes working with people so meaningful.
Yeah, and I think there is like the rise of AI-based agent receptionists, for example, or things
Yeah.
like that. And part of obviously it's like, oh, you don't need someone to mend the space. But on the other hand, I think to your point, correct me if I'm wrong, but you lose the personal touch, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, I mean, sure, you could walk up and talk to a screen, but I mean, where you miss that, you miss that connection. I mean, personally, I do. I love talking to people, and I get a lot out of those connections. And I think that, once you start removing that human element, whether it's at work, it kind of just permeates out, right, to everything around you. So that's it's my opinion about it. But
And Lisa, can I jump in here? It's very
Yeah, of course.
interesting because I think AI scares some people because it has the word artificial,
mhm.
Yeah.
right? And then I think what a lot of companies are doing is trying to create robots that look like humans. It's even more scary,
Yes,
I
yeah,
think. So I think it's not that we want to use AI to create human look-alike things, but we want to use AI as a tool, like
mhm.
what Michael was saying, right, to support that process to provide the human-centric experience.
I love it. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a very good framing. Definitely. I love it. And Svetlana, you also mentioned, maybe as a follow-up question to you, part of your role is actually looking at AI tools, right? So I'm curious from your perspective, if you can share some, practical examples that workplace leaders can implement AI, or how does it help your team work and be more efficient?
Yes, I think, just to add to Michael's points, when he talked about we using ChatGPT, again, we're using the same things. We have Gemini. Uh, we're really focused on how AI can help our teams move faster from data to insight, and that's what my team focuses on. And beyond using tools like ChatGPT for everyday productivity, like summarizing, drafting, or brainstorming, we're also training AI models specifically to corporate real estate data. And that happens because we already have a centralized data platform for all our real estate data. So we are putting AI on top of it, we're training models for them to be able to answer specific questions. So, for example, if someone were to come in and they want to know, hey, which sites are currently 10% over ROM, right? Um, AI can give them that answer just by querying the data that we have sitting in the background, and they don't have to dig through a report. And then they can take action. Again, just having that human element, AI is there to help. It's there to behave like an assistant, if you might say. And then I mean, humans are the one who are adding the actual value, just being there, taking the decisions, taking those strategic planning decisions uh, more easily and more faster.
Yeah. And by the way, I think it's incredible to train, AI on your proprietary data set. I think that's obviously part of getting those accurate insights and such a good use of time in a sense, right? So it's
Right. No,
incredible.
I totally agree.
I have no doubt that it saved tens of hours to your team, at least. And Didier, question to you also, I would say part of it that is related to the AI revolution and workplace innovation, I think in general. What does it mean for you? Can you share a little bit about, some initiative that you're doing at Gilead, or, what are things that you're excited about moving forward to try? Curious to hear from your perspective.
Sure. And I think like what I said earlier, I think when the word innovation comes up, I don't really think about AI immediately right now, but more of like thinking about making sure we're always curious, we're always open-minded, and learning is a big part for me. So with that mindset, then, whether it's digital, whether it's non-digital, whether it's human-centric, then you're always kind of exploring and getting better to improve the workspaces. What is exciting for me right now? I think occupancy planning, like AI occupancy planning to create scenarios based on headcount forecast and adjacency matrix. That's something I am exploring instead of, because we don't have as much square footage as Michael, but we have about 8 million square feet of real estate globally. And the campus has about 45 buildings. So a lot of times we're thinking about different businesses, adjacencies, so wanting to make sure that we can actually use the data pool that we already have to create different scenarios that will help push for more efficiency when we're looking at planning. We started using an AI test fit tool that would generate 3 different test fits within 20 seconds. So we're working with the vendor right now to look at how to implement our global design guidelines into these. And then on the human-centric side, I'm actually really excited on how we've been talking about neurodiversity, and recently a lot of talk about how we are designing for menopause. We actually just had a presentation from Milano 2 days ago, and it's pretty interesting, like 500 million women aged 45 to 65, they're actually in the workplace globally. So, I think we really need to start thinking about how to design for them better as well as for everybody, because one size doesn't fit all. So I think both the human side and the digital side very exciting. And again, I was talking about AI as artificial intelligence. Can we replace the word artificial? Like maybe it's human intelligence. Yeah.
Human at scale. I love it. It's really nice also to see that you're looking at it from all the angles that it can contribute, right? And to the point also of like your last point of there is no one size fits all, that's also related to workplace policies and strategies, right? Like we can see here on the call that there is no one size fits all, but still there are, happy, productive employees in every company. With optimizing what matters most to the company and the employees. So it's quite fascinating. I want to talk a little bit about the data that you collect, but also how do you make it actionable. So Svetlana, would love to hear. I know that you have a great story about DoorDash's evolution of tracking, badging data to sensors for, RTO insights or in general occupancy insights. Can you walk us through how that data translated into actual changes?
Sure. So for us, our RTO Insights journey started with basic badging data, which gave us a sense of who was coming in and when they were coming in. But we wanted to go deeper. So we went to Wi-Fi data and how the Wi-Fi is being utilized. That was not enough. So we introduced sensors recently to one of our sites to understand how the spaces were actually being utilized. Things like passive desk usage or conference room efficiency. And that shift basically help us move from just measuring occupancy to understanding how the space is being utilized. And with those insights, we have made targeted incremental improvements by adding flexible spaces, reconfiguring conference rooms of different sizes. So, like introducing two-person conference rooms or three-person conference rooms rather than having like 20 people spaces, and creating neighborhoods that support both individual focus and team collaboration. And of course, we need to look at various data sets holistically, whether it's badging or Wi-Fi or sensors. And it has changed how we design and plan the next floor that we build in. We changed, learning from those insights, and we have incorporated all those new things that we learned from the sensor data, badging data holistically.
Yeah, and it's what a cool insight that there is a lot of need for smaller meeting rooms. Actually, I think just recently I've heard I talked with a workplace leader that they basically installed two-person booth, quite a lot of two-person booth, because that's like you mostly do one-on-ones and things like that, and you want this combination. So it's a great insight on how to redesign the space, or especially if you're doing a neighborhood environment. So how do you optimize for collaboration? Did you also, I'm sure you're looking at this for optimization on the productivity of the different business units and how they collaborate and work together. So I'm sure it's part of that data decision-making process, I would say.
Mhm.
And Didi, actually a follow-up question to you. You have actually introduced the two-person room, right, as well. And you talked about your passion about neurodiversity. Can you share a little bit how you identify these needs and what metrics are you using to evaluate if this is actually working?
Yeah, I think a lot of these is sort of through discussions like today, and through listening to our peers, my peers in the industry, on what employees need, and also really listening to our users as well on, especially coming back from COVID as things have changed. And they found it difficult to work, and understanding, why is it difficult to work, or what kind of space do you need? So we introduced initially it was a 1% focus room to really help people work better, so they can jump into the rooms to have Zoom calls or have confidential meetings or have focus work. And then we realized that, as our workforce evolves, one-on-ones have also become more frequent, or in-person experience and meetings are important too. So we've kind of added one more chair, made the room a lot more cozy, so you can have less formal one-on-ones. I feel like maybe 20 years ago, one-on-ones have to be very formal, but now I think with a different generation, different mindset, as we evolve, we also want to have that informal option. So that's what we've been doing. And on neurodiversity, it's the same. It was through, I'm sure many of you know Kay Sargent from HOK. She was going around giving presentations. So we've now established a relationship and a friendship to really learn from her and from other experts in the industry on what neurodiversity means and how do we talk about it more, right? How do we make sure employees don't feel ashamed? And then another fun fact, 36% of adults with ADHD may not know they have it. And funny, this morning I actually got a text from a friend from London that actually just said she just got diagnosed with ADHD at 52 years old. And now suddenly like she's taking medication and realizing that like why she hasn't been able to perform the way she did before. So I think kind of really, yeah, being more aware of all these. And then I think going back to the data side, trying to use data to help us then drive the decisions in terms of quantities, or whether it's data through digital or through feedback via surveys to help us understand how can we better the space or improve the design of these spaces.
Thank you. What a beautiful story that basically combines to the first question, the human element and the data element. Really inspiring, candidly. Michael, on the other hand, I would say from your perspective, your CEO prefers people working at desks rather than the phone booth, right? Or in general, that's the company culture. How do you navigate, in general, I think if we generalize this, there is a lot of, this is what leadership wants, this is what the employees want. How does this actually converge into one? So I'm curious from your perspective, how do you navigate that in terms of design and data as well?
Yeah, I know it's kind of opposite from what you're hearing from a lot of people. I think, yeah, we definitely have an idea that, being at your desk and having that accessibility to your coworkers and that the sound of people on calls kind of creates this buzz. We do have a fairly strong founder-led culture here, and that's something that we value. And our leaders do have firm opinions that come from a deep understanding of the company, the employees, and kind of the market. So I've found over the past year that my best approach is to kind of pick a few strategic areas where I think I can make a real impact here, and then kind of bring the leadership along that journey. Right, data obviously does play a huge part in that. We're redesigning a new space in Boston, and a lot of it we're pulling conference rooms data and things like that to see how we're going to design the new space. And every company I've been at, both you've said this, both Svetlana and Didi. I mean, it's the 2-person rooms. No matter what company you're at, I feel like that's just it, right? I mean, everyone wants those rooms, and I've used Verge Sense data at one point at a previous company where I was in the middle of construction and actually pivoted and started adding Zoom to those rooms because we started getting so much feedback that those were the most used rooms in the company, and they wanted this data. So we're kind of doing the similar thing here, and we don't use a lot of sensor data or things like that at Wayfair, but I'm using the data that I can, which kind of helps me translate like my views into evidence that I'm trying to on that journey that I'm trying to bring leadership on. I don't want to win every argument. I don't think any of us really want to get into arguments with a lot of our leaders. So instead, I kind of focus on where that data, where my expertise, and where leadership vision can kind of come together to meet and serve and create the culture that we're trying to create. And a lot of it is more about um, you know influencing and having conversation rather than enforcing for me.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. And one last question to all of you, and I would love to hear your thoughts before we'll go to the Q&A session. Is in one sentence, what's one workplace trend or challenge you're most focused on solving in 2026? Yeah.
Should I start?
Wants to start? Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I think for 2026, I think one of the main things I'll continue to focus on is continuing to eliminate that more tedious work with AI, with whatever tools we have, right? So that we can continue that collaboration across functions that we started, and make smarter, whether it's forecasting decisions, design decisions to create and continue to create, whether it's our current spaces or future ones, right? That drive that connection, efficiency, and that human element. So leveraging it as much as I can to kind of reduce like I said, the more tedious work to focus on that human element.
Amazing.
I'll add on, I think on similar lines, I think I'm focused on transforming how we use metrics and AI. Again, definitely want a human element to stay there. But again, shifting from just tracking historical performances to building predictive, insight-driven systems that help us make better workplace decisions in real time.
Thank you. Didi?
Yeah, and I agree with Michael and Svetlana. And on top of that, I think I heard the word happy at the beginning of this call. So I really would love for our employees to be happy with all the projects that we're doing over the next year.
Love it. Thank you. Awesome. We'll move to the Q&A session. There are a lot of questions, and we'll try to get through as much as we can. But I'll start with how can you help long-tenured employees who recall the pre-pandemic office culture appreciate a hybrid model, even if the office experience feels different? Who wants to take it?
I can take it. I think it's a great question. One, the long tenured employees, they bring in a lot of expertise and knowledge with them. So we definitely want to make sure that they feel welcomed and they feel comfortable in the place. And I think one of the things we need to do first is identify that yes, the workspace is changing. Just accepting that fact that we have changed the workplace, and I think it gives them a sense of understanding that yes, it has changed. It give them that acceptance, the first step in change. And then the second thing I think, would be just what we have been doing, which is basically like some in-person collaboration days, which basically bring back that pre-COVID culture, pre-pandemic. People were coming in, collaborating. I think having those intentional collaboration days, just like most of the companies have now, like you come in either 2 days, it's Monday or Thursday or Tuesdays or Thursdays, that kind of thing. I think that does give the ability to build in-person connections, which sometimes are lost or less, favored over Zoom. And I think like with our company, I would say like we do have, our team is all over, so we do have a lot of meeting like in person on sites where we all come together and meet and understand each other, what they're going through, solve problems. I think that's really important, just to have that human element come back to them, and why we are collaborating and coming in office, and also understand that we are building for the future as well. So there are new employees who are going to come up. So,
No, thank you. Another follow-up question would be, and I think it's a great, it's a broad question as well. What are some skills workplace leaders need to have, but are often overlooked? And I'll maybe generalize this to, obviously the workplace as a role, right? Workplace leaders have had a huge transformation in the last few years. So I'm curious from your perspective, if you are just starting out or you're already senior in this role, what are the things that you should be focusing on?
Jump in and start. I mean, I think especially with what we've experienced, I think over the last 5, 6 years, right? I think it's um, just being adaptable and listening. I mean, they're two obviously very basic things that you just seem like common sense, right? But I think a lot of us, especially where we do this every day and it's our area of expertise, right? We can kind of just get siloed into trying to, you know, to solve things, where we think, we'll make a decision because we think we know it's right based off of previous experience or what we know from market, or like you said, Didi, from peers and things like that. But I think being able to listen, whether it's to leadership, whether it's to people who are coming in every day, and kind of translate their requirements and their needs and that human element again, into design or programming, whatever it is. I think that's important, and just not being too stuck in your ways. I think COVID's probably taught us that, and for me, the biggest way that I think workplaces change is that there's more flexibility right now. So I think it doesn't necessarily have to change the way the office looks or the way it functions. I think you can still, do that, but I think being able to adapt and allow the flexibility that people now need and experienced over those years, I think is kind of a key thing for us.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think listening is really important. And, like we have so much going on. Everyone is so busy every day at work these days that we really react, right? Someone said to me last week at one of these sessions, that's why I love it. It's like always kind of remembering phrases. They said, let's predict instead of react. And I love that because we can try to predict people's behaviors, predict what like next year's projects could look like, or predict what the workforce, how could the workplace can evolve, rather than react to a day-to-day, fire drills. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. I will definitely use that as well. Such a great sentence and very true. Another question here that I think is related obviously to the topic, but how do you create a single source of truth for data if you may not have the resources, right? Staff, funds for applications to build it. And also if you want to share which data sources are you using would be great as well.
So I think I can take it. So I think staffing and funds, I think that's one big thing. Um, I would say let's start with basic, you know. Let's identify just one system that you use the most, and then try to focus on that, and then try to build a tool for that, you know, going forward. There are various tools available in market, you know, they range from smaller, yeah, you know, like from variety, you know, from cost wise, you know, they have a big scale. Uh, Once you create that, you know, once you focus on that one particular tool and you limit the access controls, and you know you have that one solidified platform where you can basically, you know, store all your data and make sure that nobody else is touching it and there's nobody else that data is being stored. I think it's from there, you know, you start to show the value of what that tool has created, and then you can, you know, move forward with budgeting for a greater tool, or you know, a cloud warehouse, and then start from there. uh, Definitely, you know, I would encourage, you know, I know workplace at times they don't have as many resources available to them, but just exploring within your company, if your IT teams or if your people engineering teams could help you with that, and you know, as a side project, and definitely you could learn more about how much impact it will make, and then show that impact to your leaders, uh, and just get the buy-in from there.
Love it.
Yeah, and Lisa, if the data is really so big that you're trying to, like, that's what I went through to struck, you're trying to then go back to find that one source of truth. I think trusted partnerships would be very important. Like, you know, between IT, HR, workplace, real estate, master planning, right? Really to sit down and, like what Svetlana was saying, identifying the resources that, yeah, could one representative from each group help to do it, because the objective is clear, and that partnership is really, really important.
You're totally right, by the way. I think that's a really key point. At the end of the day, workplace leaders, they most often do not operate in silo. You have your counterparts in finance, in HR, in IT, and it's all, you know, at the end of the day, you all working towards some mutual goals, right? And to your point, it's like really level setting in that aspect. One last question that just came in, I think it's excellent, is how do you balance optimizing for real estate and optimizing for customer experience of employees? These metrics often move in opposite directions. Who wants to take it?
Can you repeat it? Sorry, my internet cut out there for a second. You just
How do you balance optimizing for real estate and optimizing for customer experience of employees? These metrics often move in opposite directions, right?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess you can. I mean, as you start to, like, you know, look at right sizing portfolios and things like that, and maybe you know, is that what you mean, right? And then you're cutting down your portfolio, which then obviously generally has adverse effects on the employee experience. But I think that, um, again, back to those forming that collaboration and that teamwork, right? I think if you work together, cross-functionally to try and do it in a smart way. Again, it seems very basic, I'm sure, but it's just to do that in a more strategic, and structured way. I think that you can make some of the harder decisions on what you have to do with the portfolio while not really, sacrificing the experience for people.
Yeah, and I think as you look at, maybe if a lot of us are looking at kind of optimizing real estate now, which means shrinking that square footage, identify the spaces that are most important for that particular business group. You know, like we had a meeting yesterday where lunch actually was really important, where 100 people would gather together for lunch. So then we would want to make that area bigger. So maybe prioritizing the different space types to really provide an enhanced experience based on the user group will be great.
Amazing. Thank you.
And like Svetlana, you said too, right? I think a lot of companies are focusing on, if you have that like collaboration, like focusing on spaces now where you can get teams to come together. So I'm sure maybe you don't have, 15 offices anymore, but you have 10, and you focus on some of that money that you then reallocate to creating spaces to bring teams together. I think is another way that you can still retain that experience, but right size the portfolio at the same time.
And I think and just to add to that point, just identifying, how where you have offices where you actually build something, and then also utilizing um, co-working spaces, just not
Mhm.
to be
Yeah.
you can go into a co-working space, you don't have much audience or many employees in that um, city, and you could utilize a co-working space instead of creating like from ground up.
Yep.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. We're at time. It was a pleasure. Time flew by. Thank you, everyone who joined us, and have a great rest of the day, and see you in the next webinar. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.